Welcome, my friends, to Zelda Month. I'm super excited to participate in such a treasured holiday, and I'm looking forward to all the content that will be coming out on this channel this month. Anyway, we're kicking off this event with one of the most controversial games in the Zelda series, The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Oh boy, here we go. I've accepted the fact that pretty much whatever I say, I'm gonna make someone angry. Well, let's get on with it. Skyward Sword is one of the most divisive Zelda games. People love it, people hate it, people are neutral, plenty of videos have been made on this issue, and some are more well known than others. Needless to say, when I finally got my hands on the game, after hearing so many different opinions, I had no clue what to expect. I began to play the game. As you probably know, Skyward Sword is the first game in the Zelda timeline, holding the origins of Ganon, the Master Sword, and many little reference thingies. As a Genesis story, it isn't so definitive that another game couldn't come before it, but the origins it provides are interesting and surprisingly heartwarming. But more on that later. We start off with a dream, and our hero Link sees some evil emerging and is called by an unknown voice to awaken. Link is then awoken by Zelda, or her Loftwing, and we come to my first subject of discussion, Zelda herself. I love this version of Zelda. Making her Link's childhood friend, love interest, and for the first time not a princess, really makes her stand out from other incarnations. She also has a personality and a genuine bond with Link. This makes it so in the first few minutes of the game, you truly care about Zelda, unlike in many of the other games. It's obvious that Link cares about her too. With the exception of the Hero of Winds, this Link is the most expressive in the series. But after this scene, we begin a rather long introductory sequence. But honestly, I really like this sequence. It's apparent early on that winning this test will get you quality time with Zelda, and with competition from Groose, who I will also discuss later, I felt like this introduction was far better than Twilight Princess. You are shown the life that Link and Zelda lead, a happy, peaceful one, which makes it even more impactful when it's torn apart, and really makes you hate the villain. You retrieve a sword, and now we have to discuss the elephant in the room, the motion controls. I'm being honest here, I like them. Now, I grew up with a Wii, and the first game I ever played was Wii Sports, so I am more used to motion controls than most, but honestly, I think that they work well. The one-to-one is well designed and fun, and creates opportunities for interesting combat scenarios. So the motion controls are okay in my book, and I feel that people should give them a chance before writing it off. Next up is the flying. Though I definitely feel that more time could have been spent making the sky a more interesting overworld, flying on the Loftwing was actually pretty fun. Again, I don't see why people hate on it just because it had motion controls. But yes, the sky is pretty barren. Anyway, after hanging out with Zelda for a bit, she gets kidnapped and you wake up in your room, with Headmaster Owl informing you of Zelda's disappearance. Then, you're alone. I think this is a great moment because you really feel hopeless, like there's nothing you can do. Until you walk outside and meet Fi. As you follow this mysterious spirit through the night with a really cool song in the background, you come across a sword that looks kind of like the Master Sword. After learning what you must do, you pull the sword out of the stone, all King Arthur style, and you finally don the hero's tunic. And now, your adventure begins. Oddly enough, the part in the forest leading up to the first dungeon is what slowed the game down for me. I love the stuff in Skyloft, so I was surprised to find that actually beginning the adventure as well bored me. Huh. But anyway, you beat the first dungeon, you come face to face with our antagonist, Girahim. You may not like him, but I love this villain, and I love reading his dialogue aloud in a Roman Torchwick-esque voice.
These kids just keep getting weirder.
The fight with him is a pretty good first boss fight too. After this, you journey to the other two main areas in the game. The volcano area is pretty standard, and I won't go into much. But I do like that even though you don't fight Girahim here, it's cool that you run into him again. I always like that in a game, where you actually interact with the main villain more than once. It makes you feel more attached to them. Next up is the desert, and of course what could possibly be the best mechanic in the game, time shift stones. It's just cool to see your environment change around you with the flip of a switch, shot of an arrow, or even just a step you take. It's here that you catch up with Zelda, and before she is forced to leave you, she gives you the harp, which, even though you can't choose which song to play, playing them is still enjoyable, and it's a nice sentimental item to remind you of what you're fighting for. Oh yeah, there's someone I forgot to mention. Groose. I love this guy. Not only does he have the best theme song ever, he goes through the most character development out of any in this game. When Groose is introduced as a typical bully character, throughout your adventure, you see him grow. Initially, he's jealous of Link for all the attention he gets from Zelda and wants himself to be the hero who saves Zelda. But as you play the game, he begins to accept that Link is the true hero, and even becomes your friend/ally and helps you fight the imprisoned and even saves Zelda at a certain point. Groose is honestly one of my favorite characters in the series. One of my biggest problems with Twilight Princess was the Tears of Light segments. At first, when I saw that Skyward Sword has something similar, I was annoyed. but when I actually played the Silent Realm sections, I realized how good they really were. Though the concept is taken from Twilight Princess, it is improved so much by adding something so simple. A sense of tension. In the Silent Realm segments, you are stripped of your items and left defensiveless as one-hit enemies constantly chase you down. The only way to stop them is to collect a soul thing and freeze them for about a minute, but when the timer runs out, boom. It's awesome, creating so much tension in what used to be a bland, boring collectathon. Something I've neglected to talk about are the dungeons themselves. I gotta say, I think Skyward Sword has some of the best dungeons in the entire Zelda series. Why? Well, for one thing, they're short. Twilight Princess had really large, vast dungeons that took forever to beat. Skyward Sword had smaller, more condensed dungeons with more puzzles crammed into them. That way, the amount of time it takes for the player to beat the dungeon is determined by the player's ability to solve the puzzles and fight enemies, not the size of the area. And not to mention, they finally added checkpoints in the game. Oh, it's beautiful! And the dungeons are also some of the best aesthetically designed areas in the series. I mean, just look at the ancient cistern. Can you not tell me that this doesn't impress you? Oh, and then you go underground and it's terrifying, culminating in this moment that is sure to cause a young child nightmares. Leave me alone! And of course, there's a sand ship and the sand sea right before it. Awesome. Oh, and you get to fight a pirate on the pirate ship and knock him off the plank, just like I always dreamed of. And after these 3 dungeons, you can at long last see Zelda again. Oh no. It's this scene. Yeah. Honestly, what could I possibly say about this scene? It's perfect. Seriously, it gives you motivation, a great twist, and one heartbreaking scene. And the look on Link's face says it all. So after this, you go through a hell of a time getting to the final dungeons, but the segments are fun enough, and the final dungeon is a pretty cool concept, sliding rooms around like a giant puzzle. And then, it's off to the boss. But first you may be wondering why I haven't been discussing the side quests. Honestly, I didn't really get into any of them. Here's the thing, when I play a game, I'm really bad at multitasking. Usually I will focus on the main story and do side missions as they naturally come up, but they really didn't pull me in during my playthrough, and I was always too invested in the story to go hunting for side quests. So in the end, this goes to 2 points. A negative that side quests didn't really attract my attention, but a plus that I was so invested in the main story that nothing else mattered to me. Anyways, back to the boss. Before we fight Girahim for the 3rd time, we have to fight our way through the Horde, a group of 100 or so enemies as we sprint down at the bottom of the canyon. Though there isn't much variety in this fight, it still feels really cool to barrel through all the enemies and gives you a sense that you've come a long way since you began your adventure. It also is a nice moment for Link, with him literally fighting hundreds of monsters in order to save Zelda. Then we have the final Girahim fight. Though I will say the multiple imprisoned fights bother me, I had no problem with the Girahim fights, as, like I said before, having multiple encounters with your antagonist is a plus and makes him more memorable a villain. After the last fight, you are unable to stop him as he uses Zelda to resurrect his master, Demise. With Zelda's life on the line, you go to Demise and where else? The sky. This fight is really cool, tense, and serves as a great final boss. I was so ready to save Zelda, I was just swinging my sword like mad. Probably looking a lot less cool than I felt like. And that's it. You beat him, he curses you and Zelda, blah blah blah. What's really important is Fi. Now, a lot, and I mean a lot of people hate Fi, but honestly I liked her. A lot better than Navi at least. She did give a sense of comfort knowing that she was helping you. And now that the adventure is over, you have to say goodbye. And it's pretty heartbreaking, at least for me. The way she finally feels an emotion, the way she thanks you, and the way that she is always in the Master Sword, so she will accompany every incarnation of Link on his big quest. It's great. And that awesome last minute reveal that the old woman was Impa, I was surprised at least. Oh, and look at Groos's mouth. So that's Skyward Sword. Is it the best Zelda game? Not in my book, no. Is it bad? No way. If I haven't convinced you now, nothing will. But let me just say this. It is more linear. It is flawed. Very flawed. It's not a good overworld. But that doesn't take away from the good here. The great here. The story, the characters, and yes, the gameplay. There are moments in this game I will always remember. In the end, I walked away from this game fully satisfied. Can the motion controls be frustrating? Absolutely. But give them a chance and you may have some fun. In the end, it's all opinion. And my opinion is that this is a fantastic game. You may not love it, but I do. And there's nothing wrong with that.